Lesley was a woman who loved children and flowers. For the last 2 years she had been battling with the illness of cancer of the colon. She had done it very bravely and she had had a good time. But in the beautiful summer of 2005 in England, her cancer had flared up again and she was admitted into Gloucester General Hospital. A menacing building, high-rised, with a tall, slim hospital chimney standing next to it, on the outskirts of the ugly city of Gloucester. If there was anything Lesley hated, it was doctors and hospitals, but there was nothing for it. She had to go there now. And one day the palliative care nurses wanted to have a meeting with Lesley and her family, husband and 4 children. They told the family that there was nothing left to be done for her anymore. Lesley would only have about 3 or 4 weeks left to live. So the husband spoke, and he said that it was Lesley's wish to spend her last days at home and to die at home, and that was also the family's wish. He also said that it would be good for the children to accompany the mother's death process, because that would help them in the grieving process that would inevitably come. He was very clear. You could almost think that he was a bit detached. So the nurses said, "It's very good that you are so clear about your wishes. But Lesley, what do you think about all this?" "It's a bloody nuisance, that's what it is. Here I am, only 53 years of age. My children would still need me. And one day they're going to have grandchildren, and I will never see those grandchildren. It is a bloody nuisance, that is what it is." "Yes, Lesley, we can see that you are angry. We can understand that. But are there any other feelings? Feelings of fear, maybe?" "Fear? What is there to be afraid of? I'm just going to die, and I know exactly where I'm going. No, there's nothing to be afraid of." "Yes, Lesley, you are a very brave woman." "Huh, brave. You know, I get so fed up with you nurses and doctors. You tell me all the time how brave I am. There's nothing to be brave about. I am just going to die. But it is a bloody nuisance, that is what it is." And with that, Lesley had made it clear to the nurses what her wishes was. So they were only too helpful to fulfill those wishes. All sorts of equipments were brought into the house. Lesley's side of the double bed became a hospital bed which could be raised up and down, and the backrest could be lifted up so that she could sit up. There was a wheelchair brought in, a Zimmer frame, aids to get in and out of the bath, and the palliative nurses came and set up their store of painkillers and record sheets. And now Lesley could sit on her lawn in her wheelchair with all her flowers around her. She sat at the fish pond that she had made together with her sons, listening to the water trickling down the waterfall. And she could look out over that beautiful valley in front of the garden, down to the village of Shortwood with its pretty English cottages. And all her friends and family and relations could come and visit her and say goodbye to her. And the children were there to accompany her. But it's strange with young people, because they were there to accompany their mother's death process. But they thought nothing happened. It takes too long. They got impatient. And of course they were young. They had things to do. Johannes was a farmer in Sussex and it was harvesting time. Susanna was an au pair girl in Stockholm in Sweden. She loved her au pair family. She had a boyfriend she wanted to be with. Christopher worked at an estate. He needed to earn money so that he could finance his training as a traditional boat builder. And Matthias wanted to go up to Scotland to visit his godmother. And Lesley said, "Let them go. Then you and I could have a few days together on our own. So the children left and we were on our own. Every day Lesley wanted to go out for a walk. She had to be pushed in the wheelchair. She had a favourite spot. It was under a little chestnut tree outside the gates of an English churchyard. And there she sat in her wheelchair and she looked down the valley to the town of Nailsworth where she lived. And she looked up to the top of the valley all the way up to the horizon. And there was the hill with all the trees on it, oak trees, maple trees, copper beeches, chestnuts. The whole hill looked like one big multicolored tree. And one day she was sitting more quiet than usual, in her own world, looking out on that beauty. I watched her, and it was as if she was saying goodbye to this beautiful world that she was about to leave. And for every day she became weaker, she spent more and more time in her bed. And one day I stood down in the sitting room discussing medication with the nurse, when I heard from up the bedroom, "Ulf! Ulf! Come here quickly!" So I ran up the stairs, and as I entered the bedroom, there she was lying in the bed, arms stretched out. "Goodbye! Thank you for everything. I'm going now." I hadn't seen any people dying ever before. I didn't know what it would look like when somebody died. But was this the way it would look? But anyway, I rushed up to her bed. I climbed up into the bed, knelt down by the side of her body, and I slid my arms under her feeble shoulders. She put her feeble arms around my neck. "Goodbye. Thank you. Thank you for everything." We kissed. And then I put her down again. And she let go. Then I wanted to kiss her again. But then her feeble arms came up and pushed me away. "Stop that! Don't do it! Don't hold me back! Let me go now!" After that, her breathing became more and more irregular. And that day the children were on their way back to the house. So I said to Lesley in the afternoon, "Do you think that you will hang on until the children come back?" "Expect so." And that night the children converged on the house at the same time, as if by magic, from all over the land. From Sussex, from Sweden, from the estate where Christopher was working. Matthias came back from his godmother in Scotland. And when people who haven't seen each other for a long time meet again in England, they have to have a nice cup of tea and a dry, boring biscuit with it. So I made the tea. The boys sat on chairs round Lesley's bed. Susanna, her daughter, Anna, Johannes' girlfriend, climbed up in the bed next to her. And they were all talking, they were all laughing, everybody was happy. They were cracking jokes. Lesley sat up in the bed and she was so happy to have them all around her. And when Johannes did a farmer's burp, she said, "Johannes, you mustn't burp." The next day, Lesley was not communicative anymore. And she finally died at 1 o'clock in the morning on the 20th of August. That night was a moonlit night, full moon. It stood clear in the sky, it shone down. Stars were up in the sky. Here and there was a fluffy little cloud, but it was all still. Nothing moved. On the ground everything could be seen clearly. Across the valley the pretty cottages in Shortwood stood out clearly. The cows and sheep were lying asleep on the meadows, and up at the top you could see the strong oak trees starkly silhouetted against the evening sky. It was so still. Together we laid out Lesley, and then we all went to sleep. The 20th of August was Lesley's youngest son Matthias's 18th birthday. And Lesley had always said that when you're 18, Matthias, we're going to have a champagne breakfast. So everything that was needed was there. That morning we created the breakfast, full English. There were croissants, there were cheeses, there were jams, there were marmalades, coffees, teas, and champagne. We laid it out on the patio, on the garden table, just under the window where Lesley was lying. And we had a sumptuous breakfast. Everybody was happy. We were joking, we were singing. We had never sung Happy Birthday so vigorously ever before. Happy birthday, Matthias, and cheers to Lesley. That afternoon the children was out doing something. I was alone in the house. And I noticed that the flower pots on the patio had not been watered. So I started watering them with a watering can. And as I did that was the moment when I started to cry. So all those pots was watered by the water from the watering can and by my tears. When I'd finished, I walked down to the bottom of the garden. I stood on a stone and I looked out over the valley down to Shortwood. And I started to sing. I sang Lesley's favorite song. Vem kan segla förutan vind? Vem kan ro utan åror? Vem kan skiljas från vännen sin utan att fälla tårar? Jag kan segla förutan vind, jag kan ro utan åror, men inte skiljas från vännen min utan att fälla tårar. In English that means, who can sail without the wind? Who can row without an oar? Who can part from his friend without shedding a tear? I can row without an oar, I can sail without the wind, but I cannot part from my friend without shedding a tear. And I sang that song, and I cried. I sang it, and I cried. I sang it, and I cried. I sang it, and I cried, until there was no more tears to cry. Lesley's funeral was in Sturts Farm community, a community for adults with special needs, where Lesley had worked and lived. That community was very good at putting on festivals and celebrations and fairs. And today was the festival of Lesley's funeral. People were scurrying over the village green, carrying flasks of coffee and cakes and pizza slices and biscuits for the social gathering. Everybody was happy, everybody was smiling. It was a good day. The weather was nice, but here and there were big, fluffy white clouds. And as the celebrations went on, the rain came in sometimes. There was thunder rumbling around the horizons. And after the coffee and cake, there was a memorial gathering in the hall of the community, where everybody could share memories, stories, say a poem, sing a song. Towards the end of the gathering, Cecile stood up. She said she wanted to play a piece on the piano, but she didn't feel very confident because she was learning to play. So she wasn't sure if she dared to do it in front of so many people. But then she said she thought about what Lesley would have said if she asked her. Just do it, woman." So she decided to sit down and play the piece. It was a very beautiful piece. And when she struck the last chord, there was a mighty clap of thunder in the air. Lesley's memorial gathering was over, and Lesley had had the last word, as usual.